Hi, this is Greg Smalley back with Giles Edwards and joined by a special guest, Julian Glander of the new coming of age film Boys Go to Jupiter, independent animation. It's critically acclaimed. Last I saw, 95% positive on Rotten Tomatoes, so congratulations there. Um, and we have so many questions we could ask about the animation, the music, about your shorts career, which I've just been diving into today, and your biography. But I'd like to let Giles handle most of those questions since he was the primary reviewer on the film. But since we only have a short time, I want to dive right in and ask about what's most important to our viewers, 366 Weird Movies viewers, and that's weirdness. And I don't know how involved you were personally with the marketing campaign, but I noticed the trailer, the pull quotes highlight words like otherworldly, surreal, bizarre, and absurd. And since the marketing is leaning into that aspect of the film, let me just ask, did you deliberately set out to create a weird film?
No, I think that's one of the treats or surprises of making any project is you find out that things you thought were very normal are actually strange to other people. I spent so long in this sort of pastel colored version of Florida that when I look up into a normal room, uh, it looks like your black and white Zoom background that you're on now. So no, I'm completely desensitized to it. I think weirdness is obviously very subjective, but I guess it's very close to interestingness, and that's kind of more what I was interested in, for lack of a better way to describe it, is a sense of interestingness, or I guess novelty.
Yeah, I think that's when weirdness works the best, is when it's just naturally flowing out of your personality and being unique and true to yourself rather than trying to play to what's expected of a project like this. So, Giles, I'm going to let you ask most of the questions now if you're ready. You have some.
Sure. Hello, Julian. I'm
Hello,
Giles.
Giles.
I had the pleasure of catching your film last week sometime, I believe. And I guess, yeah, a good way to start here is you mentioned Pastel World. Boys Go to Jupiter has a fairly distinct style to it that, to me, harkened back to a sort of a 90s kind of look, at least, computer graphics wise. So I'm hoping that you might talk a bit about what inspired you to approach your story here through the animation medium, and in particular this very specific kind of let's see, like the Dire Straits "Money for Nothing" that has its look.
That's a
I know the
really good
Residents
reference
did,
point. I love it. Yeah.
and the Residents did like Bad Day on the Midway and Freak Show, and those were two things that I was reminded of with this odd kind of certainly odd for the mid 2020s kind of animation.
Yeah, I think those are some reference points that are they're sort of historical bedrocks for 3D animation. Certainly, Dire Straits' "Money for Nothing." And when they made that music video, I think that was probably very expensive for them to do. And they were hitting up against, at the time, what were the limits of 3D animation. And over here, I guess 40 years later, I'm more coming up against the limits of what my little computer can do. I use Blender, which is it's as powerful as any software, but it's the hardware that kind of has set some limitations for me. So then it became a question of what story can you tell with simple shapes, with this sort of isometric view, and it became a story about sort of the gamified world we live in, or the gamified economy that we live in, and the way we look down on people like they're in The Sims. And in terms of the color, I have to mention that I grew up in Land O'Lakes, Florida, where they filmed Edward Scissorhands. And I used to drive by those houses all the time. And the thing was, they had just built this new subdivision and they painted all the houses pink and green and blue. And then when people bought the houses, they had the option to keep them that way. And every single person just painted them beige to match. the
Ooh.
rest. And the castle is not real. Obviously, it's a matte painting, but that neighborhood is very much real.
So this was this pastel was something you were personally familiar with. Let's talk about simple shapes because that'll segue into one of the more overtly strange parts of this movie, the alien presence to be found throughout Boys Go to Jupiter. Could you talk a little bit about those guys and uh, how you thought, what prompted you to think them up, and when bringing them to life in this world, did they evolve in any way? Because they're all sort of just these adorable little shapes that crop up intermittently throughout the movie.
Sure. So when I was writing the movie, I had just gotten two pet baby ducklings, and I was in the process of raising them basically from eggs. And I thought they were so strange. I mean, I thought it was my first time ever having a pet. So I was accessing this sort of new, nurturing side of myself. And at the same time, I had these baby ducks who were just extremely weird. You know, the way they walk and talk, and even just the fact that they kind of come out of the egg like fully programmed. Like, I think that was my big takeaway is like a duck is born and knows everything. Like a duck is not really going to learn anything in its life. It's like already in there. It knows how to swim and what to eat and where to go at night. And that's so different from a person. And then in terms of the design of the aliens, um, the main one, the one that the movie kind of centers on is a donut shape. And to go back to Blender, one of the big rites of passage when you're learning Blender is what's called a donut tutorial, where you go on YouTube and you watch a video of how to make a donut with icing and sprinkles on it. And it's sort of like once you've done that, you really are a Blender user. So I didn't realize it until later on. I was like, oh, of course, this is my donut. I've completed the donut.
And yeah, all right. So our hero, yeah, just to maybe slightly catch up viewers who might be diving in right now and haven't seen the movie. Our hero, Billy 5000, which, from my understanding of the movie, is his legal name. On his birth certificate, you'll see the 5 and 3 zeros there. He is about what, 15 or so, I think.
He's 16, yeah.
16. So high school dropout, and he is busy gigging his way around the streets of his little city. Could you talk a little bit about Billy, who finds this donut at one point and raises it, as I guess you did with your ducklings there, and is doing his best for this fully formed little what's it there. But Billy is he's going through some changes, and he's got at least two elements pulling on him. One is his group of younger friends, and the other is this slightly older girl who works at this juice concern. So, could you talk about the inspiration for Billy's setup, anyway?
Sure. I think he's Billy is sort of a version of who I was in high school with a lot of key differences. I never had a baby alien. And more than that, I think I wrote this movie coming out of the pandemic, and I almost felt like I was a teenager again. Like I was feeling a lot of these same coming of agey feelings of not understanding how the world worked anymore, not really understanding the way people interacted, or just like from feeling like I had really gotten life figured out to being completely scrambled and reset, which is I think what adolescence is the leaving of something behind and entering like a new and confusing world. So yeah, I was kind of accessing those feelings. And I think Billy is a delivery driver, and he basically, it's like you said, he travels around this town, and while he's delivering this food, he's meeting people and talking to them, and he's trying to find a person to be. He's looking for somebody who can show him the way into his adult life. And what he finds is that basically everyone he talks to does not have a full piece of the picture. That it's sort of like a disco ball that everyone is looking at one piece of.
Yeah. So yeah, people interaction. Yeah, I'm reminded just now of say Billy's interaction with Mr. Cretaceous, the owner of the miniature golf course, who in one scene he says something nice to Billy and literally prompts him for the correct socially acceptable reply. So as you say, yeah, looking to figure it out. And Billy, unfortunately, well, as he says, I got nothing. But with like Mr. Cretaceous, Sharon, the older woman with the shoot, does she have? She must have ducks. Then she has no. She has.
She has chickens.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's this sort of small background cast. Could you talk about them briefly? Or I presume have you known people like that? Is there a Cretaceous golf course near where you grew up?
Sure. So outside of Tampa, there's something called Dinosaur World. And it's basically just a bunch of fiberglass sculptures of dinosaurs. And you pay to kind of go in and look at them and take your picture in front of them. And I think like it really feels to me like they were working on a theme park and then they kind of gave up once they just had the dinosaurs. Like it feels like it's not all there. Those little characters, those three that you mentioned, were specifically written for the cast members who played them. The Cretaceous Holes golf course owner is Joe Pera, who I think really sinks himself into that or like presents himself in that role so naturally that you kind of fall in love with him, even though he's quite strange. But yeah, all of these characters are sort of they're trying to follow scripts. And again, I think this is a feeling that I've had coming out of the pandemic is that all of the scripts that we knew have been rewritten. And we're all trying to figure out what they are.
Uh, I just want to jump in real quick because I'll kill myself if I don't ask this question. The guy who orders the hot dogs, um, is that like a fetish that?
I think, okay, this is a good question. So there's a character played by Max Wittert who orders some hot dogs and then asks the main character Billy to chew them up for him. I think the way it's played by Max is quite devious. It has a perverse element to it. But I think it's really more, there's two things I was thinking about. One is the sort of inherent power plays that we're doing when we use these on-demand services, the way that they're kind of dehumanizing to everyone, both the deliverer and the delivery. But I also think of chewing up food for someone as like the most nurturing thing you can do. And there's a moment later in the movie where Billy watches a mama bird chew up the food for a baby bird. And I think he connects those two moments. And again, it helps him along his journey to becoming a nurturing person in a very strange way.
Sorry to interrupt. You can go
Oh
ahead.
no. It's thank you for reminding me. That memorable character, and of course the memorable hot dog purveyor. Also, so yeah, a lot of great, just sort of 1 to 3 minute characters that are sprinkled throughout here. There's one sort of recurring one. It's different characters, but it's the same voice actor. The inclusion of a Spanish speaker, and in the case of the screener I saw anyway, at any rate, without subtitles. So there were these stretches where I was catching every maybe 10th word because I took enough French to recognize some nouns. What's the deal with the gas store owner, the Brontosaurus skeleton, and possibly a third appearance of this sort of calm? It was a very calm and wise sounding voice, at least.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question. So Julio Torres he has multiple roles in the movie. He's a gas station clerk and a Brontosaurus sculpture from the mini golf course we've been talking about. It was a in the studio decision that we made to have him record his lines in Spanish. My producer Payson grew up in Ecuador, so she directed him in those scenes, and I actually don't know what he's saying. I know that someone like said it back to me recently, and I was like, that is completely not what was in the script. But I love it, and it's like you said, it's like you catch every 10th word, and this is the experience living in Florida and really almost anywhere else in America. Is you don't speak the same language as everyone, but you do understand each other. Mm-hmm. I think in the same way that Billy understands when the aliens are talking to him in their alien language. When you're doing something that is wrong at the gas station and someone is yelling at you, the actual content of the words don't really matter. So I really like it certainly is a treat for the Spanish speaking audience because they get something that I don't know out of it. But it's also just, I think, part of the texture of of life in a place like that.
Okay, cool. No, yeah, it was a great little touch. Yeah, I guess yeah, with texture, it would be remiss of us to not mention the musical element of this because there are a number of songs that occur fairly regularly in this film that many of them sung by Billy himself, and of course one number that stuck out in my mind, the power ballad about eggs. When you were writing this, forming this, were you always planning this to be a musical? How did you think that was going to work within your movie?
Sure. I think before I even knew that this was a movie, I knew that someday, if I ever made a movie, that it would be a musical. I love the format. I love the fact that it's so widely accepted in like one of the most mainstream film genres that characters can just sort of leave the world and enter a music video and like let you into their inner thoughts in a way that like there's almost no other way to do that. So the music was written pretty late. It was basically the script had question marks in it where some scenes needed connective tissue. Sometimes it felt like the action was going too fast and I wanted to slow things down. And then, yeah, it was a texture thing where we really built the songs around what was in the movie. So Mia Folek sings this song, and there's a buzzy kind of synth in it that's corresponding to the bees that are flying around her. And there's this sort of industrial beat under it because she's in this big sort of reverberous factory. And, that we kind of built out the whole sonic soundscape of the movie that way. And like one kind of reference point that I would say like the whole movie sounds like is like an ice cream truck that's kind of far away. Like this sort of twinkling bell through a distorted speaker that you have to chase after because it's getting away from you. And that's kind of what's happening to Billy's childhood, I guess.
All right. Hey, we are running a little bit late. There are at least two questions we want to get in before the
Let's do
end.
rapid fire. Yeah.
Well, the first one is we always want to ask everybody, what's next? What do you have coming up now that this is in the can? What are you working on?
I am pretty superstitious about this, but I will say I am I'm renovating a house right now and I've become really obsessed with hammers and I'm thinking about starting a hammer company to make the perfect hammer.
What? Oh,
So
prefer
moving
more
from
animation.
moving from building through programming into building in the real world.
It's nice to rotate, it's nice to do
Wonderful.
a little to stretch your arms once in a while.
Giles, you want to ask that last question?
Yeah, yeah. I think you mentioned it briefly, but we do like to wrap up with our final hard-hitting question. Can you tell us your hometown and can you recommend a restaurant there?
Okay. I lived outside Tampa in Odessa when I was a teenager. The restaurant that I really liked, I don't know if it's still open. It was called Mimi's Alaskan Tacos. And I think it was in Ybor City, and they were like deep fried tacos. And I have a punch card from 20 years ago that's one taco away from a free taco. So if they're still open, I'll go down there someday and redeem that.
That is fantastic. So I hope, yeah, everyone, I guess, yeah, keep your fingers crossed that Odessa can still give you a nice Alaskan style deep fried.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
All right. Hey, well, thank you
Oh,
so
they're
much,
there. They're
Julian.
there.
Hey,
Excellent.
oh, great. Oh, you can get that final taco. All right. I have it delivered, and then you can
Oh
have
yeah.
the guy chew it up
Cash
for you
tips
before.
appreciated.
Thank you so much for coming on and
Thank you
talking
guys.
to
This
us,
was a real
Julian.
treat.
Yeah,
It's
thank you,
great to
Ken.
have you, and best of luck with your Hammer Company or any other movies you make.
Appreciate that. Thank you guys. We'll see
We'll
you later.
talk. We'll talk to you all later. Bye bye.
Cheers.